Hi guys, welcome back to this Spring Boot Advanced Concept series. In this series, the first session was about the Spring Boot caching, where we have seen how caching helps us improve the performance of our application by storing the data and not hitting the database every time when we make a request. But there can be some problem that might occur into the caching. That is, let's say for example, initially in the database, what I have is I have the data. Let's say I have names of the students stored in the database, and as for now I have the names as, let's say, X, Y, Z and P and Q. Okay, so these are the names that I have in my database. So first time I'm making a request, first time. So when I make a request first time, what happens is it hits the database, gets me this data, and that data is stored in the cache memory, right? So in the cache memory, now the data that I have is X, Y, Z, P and Q. So these are the names that I have in the cache memory. So second time when I make a request, I will get these names. Third time, fourth time, whatever request I'm making, it is not going to connect to the database every time. It is going to get the data from the cache memory itself. So it is good, performance is improved, but there can be limitations of this. What is the limitation? Now imagine a situation where somebody has added a new name into it. Maybe somebody has added R and somebody has added S. Now the actual data in the database is X, Y, Z, P, Q, R, S, right? So which means there are 7 names available in the database, whereas when I keep making the request to the cache, because not every time it is going to hit to the database. First time it hit the database, it got me the result and it has stored the result into the API, and we keep getting that particular result, right? So what has to happen in this case? How are we going to resolve this particular problem? So to resolve this problem, we have to use another annotation of the caching. Now what is that another annotation? So this data, this is a newly saved data, right? This R and S is newly stored data. So how do we newly store a data? Obviously we know that we can do it by using a post request, right? So whenever we post the data, what has to happen is whenever new data is posted in the database, with this post method, this memory, cache memory, has to be erased. So if the cache memory is erased, obviously what happens is it will go to the database, because it, once it does not find anything into the cache memory, it has to hit to the database. So once it does not find anything here, it will go to the database. Since the new data is already added and there is nothing in the cache, so it will go here and then it will pick up all these names, and then it will bring all that new names as well into the database and stores that names, the newly added names as well. So it is about how do you handle your caching. So as a developer, you should know that whenever you make a post request or whenever you make a put request, the data is getting changed. So whenever the data is changed, at that time you have to erase this cache. That means you have to evict the cache, and then once you evict the cache, again the request will go to the actual database itself, since the data is modified. So let us understand how do we do that. So in our example, what we have actually done is we have created a method here which performs the caching, and the method actually takes 2 seconds to execute for the first time, and the next time whenever we make a request, it does not go to the database. That means it will return me the data from the cache memory itself. That is why second time it is taking 5 milliseconds or 6 milliseconds to retrieve the data for me, or you can say to execute this particular method. So what I want is I want to evict the cache. That means I want to clean the cache. Let's see how do we clean the cache. Now for cleaning the cache, I have understood that I will be using a post method for that. So I'll copy everything that's written here once again, and simply I'll paste that, and instead of making it get mapping, I will mark it as post mapping. So let this be post mapping, and there will be no cache data over here. So then this is gonna be post new data, or let's call it as uh, new data. So this new data will erase the cache So first let's remove this try and catch because it will not wait for 2 seconds to execute. Simply we will say new data added or new data added cache clean. Okay, new data added clean the cache. Okay, and clean the cache. So once the new data is added, we have to clean the cache. Now that in the previous session itself, I have told you that whenever you are performing caching at that time, you need to name the cache memory so that when you are trying to erase that cache memory, you should be telling the Spring Boot which cache memory has to be erased, which actually tells you that there can be more than one cache memory for one single Spring Boot application. So how do we erase the cache memory? And to erase the cache memory, we use the annotation called as the cache evict. Now this annotation cache evict, obviously as the name tells you that it is going to clean up the cache. Cacheable was used to uh, store the data in the cache memory, whereas the cache evict is used to clean up the cache. So this particular annotation, the cache evict, will generally be placed on top of the post method or a put method because uh, cache evict and cache put to store methods results and improve performance by reducing the repeated data calls, right? So let's evict that particular cache which we have stored here. Let's give the name, so my cache. Let's save this. This is a post mapping, and once again I have to stop this and launch the application once again. So let's launch the application once again, and for this post mapping, let's give some URL since I have not used any request mapping here. So it will be uh, post or something. We'll write maybe new data or a post or whatever. Okay, so for this post we will say, let's call it a save. Okay, post mapping save, so that whenever I hit the save endpoint, it should clean up everything. So I will stop all of that and then run this application once again. So let's go to Postman and now test our application. So here we go inside the Postman. So first thing I have already shown you that when we go without cache, any number of times you call it, it is going to take 2 seconds. Any number of times you call it 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, it will take 2 seconds because there is no caching implemented here on this endpoint that is without cache. Now this particular endpoint that is with cache, I have implemented caching here. So for the first time when I hit this, it takes 2 seconds to execute, and once it takes 2 seconds to execute, now it has the data in the cache memory. Second time when I hit this, at that time it is going to process the request in less than 2 seconds because it is now not waiting for 2 seconds since it finds the data into the cache memory. So you can see that 4 seconds, 5 seconds is not 4 5 seconds, 4 5 milliseconds it is processing the request and retrieving me the data. Now what I will do is same way, uh, I will hit a post request now, which has to erase the uh, memory, that is the cache memory. Now you can see I will hit 8080 and I will call save. So the moment I call save, it is going to evict the cache, and once the cache is evicted, you can see that new data added and clean the cache. Since now the cache is cleaned, if I go back and get the with cache, now you see when I hit this, it will take 2 seconds because now it is not retrieving the data from the cache memory. It goes to the database and gets the data. Now once again it now brings the data, once again saves the new data. So which is what I told you here. Once you make a request, post request, it adds the new data and cleans up this cache. And second time, once again when you make this request, it will be considered as the first request. So it will see that there is no data in the cache memory. It will go to the database, get this data, and once again it will store that data here. And second time when you hit it, it will take less than 2 seconds to retrieve the data. So here it has now taken 2 seconds to retrieve. Now it has stored the data into the cache memory. Now you can see that when I keep hitting send, it will still take less than 2 seconds. So the moment we post new data, you can see here, the moment we post new data, the new data is posted, the cache memory is cleaned. Once the cache memory is cleaned, it will take 2 seconds to process that information, and once it processes that information, brings the data into the cache memory, and after that, whatever data you are retrieving, that data will be retrieved from the cache memory. So this is about it for the concept of caching in Spring Boot. I hope you have enjoyed these two sessions, which is comparatively a smaller video than in my previous series. So this the code for this would be available into a new repository called as Spring Boot Advanced Concept Session 1 caching. So session 1 and session 2 both I will be adding here, so you can get the code from there. I hope you are enjoying in the series. If you are enjoying in the series, do like the videos, share the videos for a better reach, and these type of things will actually encourage me to create more such content and make the world a better place. And if somebody gets a job out of these videos, we will be achieving some goal from these videos. Thank you for your time and patience. See you in the next video. Till then, take care.